Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to May 29th. We're going to be talking about May 30th, some baseball, some special events going on in the industry, especially the Sports Trade X Millionaire Maker. I've got Michael Cohen with me, TwoGun, you might know him as, around the industry, one of the best players here. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, awesome. It's good. It's good to have you on. I know you were on earlier in the year. For those of you guys who weren't on to see that, we kind of were talking about some what Sports Trade X offers, and we definitely want to have you on here tonight to talk about this. There have been a couple other $1 million prizes in the industry. I know we talked about the FanX home run one not too long ago, and this is another one, guys, where you have an opportunity to take home $1 million, and there's not some outrageous entry fee. And I'll let you talk a little bit about that as we get going here. But I guess before we really start, how are things been going in DFS for you? I know we talked a little bit about it in the pre-show. Things going all right?
Oh, for me, quite frankly, I've had a little bit of a cold streak in May, but you know how it is in MLB. I play a lot of the GPPs, so it's just I'm very dependent on a few big hits there. So just gotta wait out the MLB season.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. We were talking about that in the pre-show. It's a game of up and downs, and you got to be able to kind of roll with the punches. One night you pick a team that everybody seems to hit a homer or something. The next night you can't seem to buy a hit. So that's how it goes in MLB. One of the more difficult sports, in my opinion, to predict the play and to kind of be successful night in and night out. But hopefully that turns around here for you. Anyway, before we do get to tomorrow's slate, because we are going to talk about that, we want to talk about some matchups to give you guys a heads up and maybe help you guys have a good chance to win that $1 million. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the special Super Pick'em Millionaire Maker?
Well, the Super Pick'em, basically it's a $10,000 guaranteed contest with 100 people and a $108 buy-in. So it's kind of like your typical 10K contest at most sites, although the buy-in's a little bit lower. It's just 108. It's not 109 or 110 or anything like that. And there's 20 matchups. You're gonna make 20 picks. So whoever has the most picks correct wins the top prize. So out of the 20 picks, if you have 17 right and you have more picks right than anyone else, then you would win the top prize in this contest, which is $2,000. Now, let's just say you go 20-0, you'll win $1 million. It's a bonus prize. So basically, if no one wins, if no one goes 20-0, it's just your typical $10,000 GPP, 100 people, and a $2,000 top prize. But if someone goes perfect, they just nail it that day and go 20-0. In addition to winning the top prize of $2,000, they'll win $1 million. So the $1 million prize, it's not something you have to pay extra for. It's a total bonus. It's just kind of like if, say, at most sites, you're entering a 10K GPP and like every guy hits a home run and your pitcher pitches real well. You not only do you win the contest, you win an extra $1 million. I mean, no sites do that, but I'm saying that's kind of what the equivalent is. With our site, you're not paying any extra for this chance at $1 million. It's just a total bonus. If you just nail it that day, boom, $1 million, just to, because hey, you deserve it, right?
Right. Awesome. And I think one of the things that I really want to kind of point out here is, some of the other $1 million prizes in the industry, you have to kind of grind away at the queues. And I know we were talking about that earlier. You taking your chances with queues and stuff like that. You don't have to qualify for this game. You don't have to put in a billion different entries for a billion different things to try to qualify to win $1 million. All you have to do is you pay up front to get in the game, and should you not hit the million, there's still $10,000 in guaranteed prizes available for you to win. So even if as disgusting as it would be to go 19 of 20, as heartbreaking as that would be, you'd still be walking away with $2,000 as a top guy for a 108 entry, which in my opinion is a steal, especially when in the back of your mind when you're making those picks, you can kind of think like, hey man, if this all hits, I'm going to be a millionaire. So that would be really awesome. Do want to ask you, I know you guys, it's 3v3 like in your pick'ems, correct? Is that the same format and everything tomorrow there?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
Normally we make 8 choices, but tomorrow you'll be making 20 choices.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
If
Yeah.
you're only making 8 choices, we'd be giving away $1 million every week. So
Right. Right.
have to increase
Right.
it to 20.
Yeah. How frequently? I guess I was going to ask you. I'm not sure if you know. How frequently do guys get all the picks right on a certain night?
It varies by sport, and I don't have the data in front of me, but it definitely happens. Is all I can say. So
Right.
we've only done one 20 pick contest on Wednesday as a free roll, and no one got all 20 right. Of course, getting 20 picks right on the day that it's not the $1 million bonus prize would not be so fun. So, but I really don't. We really don't know, but the prize is insured, so quite frankly, we're hoping someone wins.
Yeah. Exactly. That would be pretty incredible. Think about it. And like I mentioned with the queues and stuff, like things like that, it's almost like you're throwing in kind of like a lottery ticket, especially for the guys with not big bankrolls that can't afford to play like the $200 queues where the entry fields are smaller. If you're trying to qualify in like a $2 game or something, you're basically throwing just cash into the wind and hoping that maybe your one lineup as compared to 6,000 other lineups happens to hit. Here, the case is you're competing against 99 other people, and there's guaranteed money on the table plus the chance to win $1 million on top of everything. So
Right. Like basically the big difference between ours and the other $1 million prizes is that you know you're basically not. It's basically a free shot in our case. Like you're not paying anything extra. It's not like a $108 buy-in, and if you don't go 20-0, you don't win anything. It's your standard 10K contest. It's a total free roll at the $1 million. And of course, the other sites, their $1 million prize, someone's definitely going to win it. We can't say that in our case. We hope someone wins it, and we're going to keep running it until someone does. But at least in our case, in our contest, you're not throwing away money qualifier after qualifier if you don't win. You're just basically it's a total free roll for the customer's part, and we're paying for the insurance for the prize out of our own pocket. So basically, you're getting free exposure at $1 million in our
right.
contest.
Yeah, and I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to take a chance at this. It would be completely different in my opinion if it was just throwing 108 for the shot at the million. But guys, this is also a guaranteed contest. So even if you don't go 20 for 20, 20 people out of the 100 are still going to win money. And if you finish in that top 20, you're going to more than double your buy-in, which, like you said, is going to give you, if you guys are going to continue to run this, it's going to give you more opportunities to try to win the million plus all that other guaranteed money. So you guys out there, if you're not already signed up with Sports Trade X, on the right side of the Lou page, the front page there, click on the Sports Trade X banner, go sign up. I know they've got some sweet loot cash outs. Take a chance at it, man. It's $1 million, and you would kick yourself if for some reason you didn't play it and you lost a chance at $1 million.
I mean, if you're gonna play $100 of contest tonight, sure you could play a lot of small GPPs and double Fs, or you could play our contest, which is a nice sized GPP. It might even overlay, and you have a free shot at winning $1 million. I mean, it's really the value play of the night. If I could play at our side, I'd be all over it, but I can't.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know, man. And I do want to mention, guys, I was talking to you before the show. Like you said, because of having to have it insured, the matchups aren't out there yet because they have to be approved. But you said what, around 1 o'clock tomorrow? You believe they'll be up there and set?
Right. Yeah, they'll be up by 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, we can't just put up a bunch of guys that aren't even playing that day, and we can't have like pitchers that aren't starting and stuff like that. They need to be reasonable matchups. Otherwise, since we're having a third party insure it, so that's why we're. But the matchups will be up in the morning. You'll definitely have plenty of time to analyze the matchups, and once they're up there, they're up there, and that's it. We're not going to change anything in the last minute or anything like that. So.
Right, right. Yeah, and that was the big thing I want to point out to you guys. Even though they're not up right now, they're still going to be there and in plenty of time for you to kind of analyze everything you want to analyze, cross match every statistic possible between the two different teams, and find the best plays. So that's awesome. And if you guys, we're gonna touch on this at the end for guys who might come in later. But definitely go over there. Take a look at it. I know there's a thread in the forums about it. It's up there on your site. There's news about it. If you want to hear more information than what we already gave you here, go check it out. Like I said, $108 entry fee, 100 people. 20 people are definitely going to be paid out, $10,000 guaranteed to be paid out, plus a chance, of basically, like you said, a free roll chance at $1 million on top of that 10K guaranteed. So definitely take advantage of that, guys. Like you said, he would be joining it if he could. Be glad that he actually can't join it, because he'd probably be a good proponent to take away that $1 million.
Cool, thanks. Look.
We'll move on here, though. There is some baseball to talk about, and we want to be able to give you guys kind of a good idea of, where maybe you should go with your picks, and should some of these guys kind of show up in those matchups, and you hear us talk about their names tonight. Maybe that's something that you kind of take into consideration before you pick a certain team tomorrow. So I'm just gonna. First of all, I'm going to go through these games here. I'm just going to talk about the weather briefly since I have that page pulled up. It doesn't look like as of right now. Okay, hold on. I'm actually on Thursday. That's today. As of right now, it looks like there are a few games with some weather concerns. And I'll tell you those guys right now, just before we even get to anything else. Yankee Stadium, some isolated thunderstorms before the Twins-Yankees game, and it looks like small chances of rain throughout that. In Fenway at Boston, the Rays and Red Sox, some showers before and through that, a little bit better chances than in Yankee Stadium. And also in Busch Stadium tomorrow, again in St. Louis, the Giants and Cardinals, some scattered thunderstorms, looks like throughout the day there. So keep your eye on that. Maybe one of those guys sneaks into a matchup and those games don't end up getting played, and you can kind of even increase your chances of looking at that million. But anyway, I will get to the games here. The first game I have on my slate, Mike, is the Rockies and the Indians. It's at Progressive Field. I'm not sure if you went game by game with this. I guess I maybe should have let you know that before we started here. But the Indians are throwing Corey Kluber, who's been pretty outstanding this year, against Juan Nicasio. Any initial thoughts here?
Yeah, I do like Kluber there. On the salary cap side, it definitely depends on his salary, but the White Sox strike out a lot, and Kluber's a strikeout pitcher, so that's definitely a extreme value play depending on what the salaries are.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I love what Corey Kluber has done this year, and honestly, coming into the season, I didn't know a whole lot about him. I knew the name. I didn't know much about kind of what he brought to the table. And you saw some starts early in the year where he wasn't too great. But in his last, 5 starts here, 13, 9, 9, 8, 9 strikeouts. And that's, we talk about it every single night on the show. Strikeouts are king for pitchers in daily fantasy. So somebody like that, and you mentioned against a Rockies lineup, he definitely has to be on your radar, especially since this game is at Progressive Field and not at Coors Field. So Kluber, by far is definitely on my radar. One thing I do want to mention is Jason Kipnis is actually back from the DL. So if you guys are kind of looking around, those lineups there, I really like to use Kipnis a lot in DFS, especially at second base. Do you have any thoughts on Kipnis or anybody else in this game offensively?
Yeah, I was about to say that was really the only offensive player that I would likely target in the game. I'm not a huge fan of doing Indian stacks in general because it's just, I don't know, I don't think they just generally just don't work in my opinion. But Kipnis generally is filling in the gap at the second baseman. There's not too many second basemen that have a lot of home run potential out there, so he's definitely would be high on my list.
Right, and aside from his potential to hit a home run, Kipnis actually steals bases too. He stole 30+ bases last season, so that's something to definitely, the upside is there for GPPs and things like that. And it's nice to have him back. I'd like to see him get some at bats first. And up until, I'm not sure what he finished last night, but I know he was hitless in his first 2 or 3. So it might be nice to see him get some at bats, but definitely a guy to make sure he's back from injury. He's going to kind of fit right back in there in that lineup, and he's a great option at second base, a spot that we've a tough time filling as it is. It's tough to have a Rockies game and not mention Troy Tulowitzki. This isn't Coors Field, and I do like Kluber a lot, and you mentioned you like Kluber. But you should always note that Troy Tulowitzki's on the table. I think if the season finished now, he'd be your NL MVP. Are there any other Rockies maybe that should somebody not want to use Kluber? Are there any Rockies that you would have your eye on?
Not really. I think I would probably avoid them because generally Rockies are too expensive because they're always priced for Coors Field. I'd say the only other offensive player I kind of like is Michael Bourne. Especially on sites that give a lot of points for stolen bases.
Right. Agree. Yeah, it's tough to roster them outside of Coors. It's totally not the same, and you never know kind of what you're going to get. And Carlos Gonzalez has been banged up. That would be a guy that I would love to roster, but I just kind of haven't seen anything from him here in a while. So it's difficult to kind of pay up for that price, especially when there's other good matchups on the board tomorrow. But I'll move from this one quickly to the Yankees and Twins game. And I know this is a game that I mentioned some brief weather concerns. It's at Yankee Stadium, which is nice for hitters. Are there any hitters here that you would be thinking about? I know it's Ricky Nolasco and Vidal Nuno, so the pitchers aren't on our radar really at all. What hitters are kind of sticking out here?
I think you could stack either team in this case. I don't know. Yankees just have been underperforming this year in the hitting department. So, it depends on what the site's pricing it as, but I think a Yankee stack is a pretty easy GPP play there right there. Brett Gardner and Jacoby Ellsbury are both going to be high value picks.
Yeah,
highest projected scores of the day.
Yeah, sorry. I totally agree with you there. I think this is kind of one of the ones that really jumps out at you as one of the easier stacks, like you mentioned, for GPP plays. And I like a lot of the Yankees left-handed bats. I seem to always roster Ellsbury, and he seems to never do anything when I roster him. But tomorrow there against Nolasco, it's another good spot for him. Good spot for McCann. And kind of all those left-handed bats in that Yankees lineup. You mentioned Gardner at the top of it. Same thing. The Twins are a frustrating team to try to stack because they don't really have a whole lot. But it is Vidal Nuno, so guys like Brian Dozier, guys like Trevor Plouffe, Willingham's back in that lineup. All those guys kind of intrigue me as options. I know Willingham homered last night, and is typically a guy that kind of flies under the radar as a big power type guy. Any thoughts on any of those really in particular that stick out?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing a mini stack of the right-handed bats on the Twins is a decent approach, especially if you want to kind of do a dual stack approach, so like a Brian Dozier, Trevor Plouffe type thing, and just kind of see where it gets you. I'm not exactly sure what the Twins lineup's going to be. There's a good chance you're going to have some random guy that I'm not even thinking about that's like minimum price that's has great stats against lefties. So
right. Yeah, I agree.
I think it's just to look out for.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough lineup to kind of really pick and choose around because, like you mentioned, there aren't a whole lot of guys there that really, jump out at you as guys that you're kind of definitely gonna play. And I do like that Willingham's back. I do like Plouffe. He gets a lot of doubles. Not a ton of home runs this year, but a guy that flies under the radar. And Dozier's been exceptional all season long. You're gonna have to pay up for him, but in Yankee Stadium gets a really nice park boost against the lefty. I don't think I wouldn't. I'm not against paying up for a guy like Dozier tomorrow. I think it's a solid matchup for him. I'll move on here to the next one. The Rangers and Nationals. This is actually at Nationals Park. The Rangers are now without Prince Fielder. The team's kind of been a disappointment all season long, and they've got Colby Lewis throwing for them tomorrow against. Let's see here, Steven Strasburg on the mound tomorrow against the Rangers. Do you like Strasburg at home?
Vegas lines indicate that I should like him, so I think I'm probably going to take him depending on the pricing situation. It's one of the lowest over-unders, and Washington's a sizable favorite. So, outside of like Adam Wainwright and a few others, he's definitely going to be high on my list to look at.
Agreed. Yeah, sorry. When you talk about a guy like Steven Strasburg, you don't really have to even dive too much into why you might use him because obviously his strikeout potential, is through the roof. And with the Rangers lineup that just kind of underperformed all season long, a lineup without Prince Fielder there, which only weakens it. At Nationals Park, at home for Strasburg, I think he's definitely in play and definitely kind of one of the top guys there tomorrow. Are you gonna try to? Sorry, go ahead.
I say I wouldn't take actually any Nationals hitters. If anything, I might actually look at Colby Lewis as well. He's his strikeout. I think he's like 7.9 K to 9 rate, something like that. So he might be a really big time value play depending on the site's pricing. So if you want to
Right.
go with like a cheap pitcher and some big bats, he wouldn't be a guy to sneeze at in
Right.
that department.
That's actually what I was just going to ask you was were you going to be on any of those bats against Colby Lewis? And the Nationals lineup is just it's tough. Like,
Mm.
I'm glad they have Adam LaRoche back because that's a guy that I might consider using against some weak righties, and I think he's a guy there tomorrow that might be a solid GPP option because of that home run potential. And he's actually been swinging it pretty well so far this year. I know he just got back not too long ago. But it's disappointing to not have guys like Harper in there. I don't really ever use Denard Span or anything like that. So, like you mentioned, there's just not a whole lot of guys in this lineup that I kind of want to get cute and use. So Colby Lewis could potentially be kind of one of those guys that sneaks into some lineups and some GPPs and ends up being a fairly nice option there tomorrow. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. Not a whole lot to talk about in these first few. To the Phillies and the Mets. If you're watching the game tonight, I know tonight was a tough slate, but I was kind of all over Zach Wheeler because of the strikeout potential. He's got 8 Ks through 5 1/3 to start tonight. The Phillies were just no hit not too long ago. And tomorrow there, it's going to be Rafael Montero, kind of one of the younger arms in that Mets organization. He had 10 strikeouts in his last start. Is Montero a guy you might think about using?
First of all, definitely congrats on using Zach Wheeler tonight. He's just been lights out. I definitely think Montero's a good option. I have no idea how sites are going to price him tomorrow, but he's just been a strikeout machine so far this year. Let me see. Looking at his minors, in the minors he averaged 8.5 strikeouts to 9, which it means he's going to have to come back to earth a little bit in the majors, but he's still a strikeout pitcher. So he might be kind of like he's probably like if you're kind of going with the Colby Lewis strategy pitcher, if he's cheap, I'm not sure if he will be, but using him and some power hitters would be a good way to go.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Man, there's just too many other really good options tomorrow, I guess, for me to really get on board with using Montero, but I don't hate the spot. We've seen this lineup. We've been preaching it all season long. This isn't the type of lineup that should really threaten anybody. Obviously they've kind of shown that in the last week or so tonight and against Beckett getting no hit. How about A.J. Burnett on the other side of this against the Mets?
I kind of think he's the same as Montero. I don't think there's really too much difference between these two pitchers in terms of their potential. So it's really just a pricing issue. Me.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I like Burnett's potential in this game with the strikeouts and everything. And he hasn't pitched too badly this season. As a whole, he hasn't been good recently. I think in his last start he gave up 11 hits in 7 innings. Those are not good numbers. That's not really what you want to see. That was against a Dodgers team, which is obviously a better team than the Mets that he's going to face tomorrow. But still somewhat of a concern there to kind of think about before you roster him out there. I wouldn't get too crazy and use him in cash games. But I think GPP option for sure should be kind of on your board there. Any hitters here? If you should kind of stay away from the pitchers, are there any hitters?
Not really. I think only like in this game is kind of in the middle in terms of its projected run total. So I think if you're kind of in a deep GPP, like with like 200 plus people, you could consider stacking either side just on some fluke reason, because the hitters are going to be cheap. So, you can stack either side, assuming the salaries are low, and because no one's really going to use these hitters that much. So, but outside of that, like in a cash game, I can't really see too many guys that are going to be great options.
Yeah, I
Maybe David
agree.
Wright.
Right, I
But,
agree.
yeah.
Just not a whole lot from either one of these teams. It really does a whole lot for me offensively. You mentioned David Wright. That guy's kind of always on the board. I like a guy like Daniel Murphy. 0 for 3 to start tonight, which is kind of disappointing. But a pretty consistent guy that flies under the radar at that second base position. That's normally difficult to fill. But outside of that, man, there's not a whole lot for either of these teams going offensively. So I think this is kind of like maybe test it with the pitchers in maybe a GPP type setting. Otherwise, kind of just stay away from it. Not too much to try to really get too cute with using here. The next game might show us some more hitters there. The Royals and Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are at home at the Rogers Center, where they're seemingly always absolutely incredible. And they get to see Jason Vargas tomorrow. But then again, the Royals also get to see J.A. Happ. Are you all in on some of these hitters maybe tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I'm going to play tomorrow, to be honest, because my focus will be on, kind of making sure the Sports Traders contest goes well. But there's a good chance I'll stack up one of these teams in a GPP. I'd prefer the Blue Jays just because they tend to be more of a home run type of team versus the Royals, which I think have the least amount of home runs in the league. Yeah, Vargas is a lefty, so taking the right-handed bats on the Blue Jays is an easy way to go. Edwin Encarnacion's been absolutely bonkers lately, so he's kind of an easy pick there at first base, unless his price is super high.
Yeah, and he homered again tonight. Edwin did.
Surprise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in the month of May, he's been so unreal, and I think you might as well just keep using him until the month of May kind of rolls over, and then let it wait and see before you really touch him too much in June, because who knows what's going to happen there. Like you said, I think the right-handed Blue Jays bats are all definitely consideration against Vargas. And on the same token, I know that the Royals are a team that I think as a team their ISO this year is like .096. It's disgusting. They don't strike out a whole lot, but they also don't hit for a lot of power. And in daily fantasy sports, we kind of need the potential to hit home runs, and they don't have a lot of right-handed bats there that can really do that. I know they're going to have guys that are going to hit right-handed like Lorenzo Cain and Alcides Escobar, Pedro Siriaco, and Salvador Perez. Of those guys, Salvador Perez really would top my list. I don't really typically use Billy Butler. There's just not a whole lot there. Once again, and kind of another one of these games that just really kind of screams like meh to me. Outside of those the big boppers from the Blue Jays, it's tough for me to really get on board with a whole lot of Royals. And I know they have like 5 runs tonight off Dickey, and they're threatening for more. But then again, you still need the home runs, and they aren't coming. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Salvador Perez at catcher. He's got pretty good numbers against lefties, and Billy Butler just sometimes is just like so underpriced, and then of course he does nothing. So.
Right. Yeah, and actually Salvador Perez actually homered tonight off Dickey. So if you're into kind of taking guys when they're maybe hitting their stride or something, hitting a hot streak or something, keep in mind that Perez did homer tonight. So. But outside of that game, moving on to the Red Sox game at Fenway Park, it's against the Rays there. There are some shower concerns, as I mentioned in the beginning of this. Tonight the Red Sox are playing the Braves at Fenway Park. Jake Peavy's on the bump tonight. Tomorrow is going to be Brandon Workman, again, who was not too great in his start last time out, which was also against Tampa Bay, actually. So they'll be seeing him again in his second one. And Tampa Bay is throwing out David Price tomorrow, who has been kind of all over the place this season. Back-to-back starts of giving up 5 earned runs. What are you thinking here?
I don't really like this game too much. Both the hitters on both these teams, especially the Red Sox, tend to be pretty pricey. And obviously you're not going to take a bunch of overpriced guys against David Price. I don't know, the Rays, you can stack the Rays, but it's probably not going to work. And I'm not going to take David Price against the Red Sox because he's on the road against the Red Sox. It's going to be expensive, and I don't really see any reason to take Workman because just so many other good pitching options. So this just seems a very meh game to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think actually this might have been the matchup. I'm not sure if these guys faced each other, but this might have been the matchup that actually happened not too long ago. their last start, I guess. And Price did really settle down there, and I think he's kind of always, we talked about everybody's seemingly always in play for a GPP, but especially a guy like Price, who does have a really big upside that we're all well aware of. But then again, he just hasn't been good enough for me to really consider, for me to really feel safe using, especially when you got guys like Wainwright and Strasburg on the board tomorrow. So I can't really get on board with using Price. Like I said, I think it's a good GPP option, but I'm not going to get too cute and try to use them in cash games. And offensively, yeah, it's one of those mad games. If you wanted to try to use Rays, which Rays do you even use on any given night? Because they really haven't been too great offensively this season. So tough one there for me. Are there any Rays hitters that you would single out?
Not really. I mean, they're going to be using since Workman's a righty, they're using their lefty guys. Maybe what's it called? Joyce is often a good value pick, from what I can tell.
Right.
I just, depending on where he's hitting in the order, sometimes he bats third, so.
Agreed. Joyce, James Loney, I guess. Man, it's just tough. It's tough to really get on board with using a bunch of those guys.
James Loney just sucks.
I know.
At least whenever I use him.
I know, and it's tough because he's a good baseball player, but he's not a good fantasy player. Kind of like one of those guys that a lot of times Ben Roethlisberger is like that. Where he's a good player, he goes out there and he wins you games. If you're a Steelers fan, but a lot of times, the numbers really aren't that pretty, and it's just kind of not conducive for winning money in daily fantasy sports. So that's my take on this game. You kind of felt the same way. The Braves and Marlins, though, the Marlins are actually going to be back at Marlins Park, where they've been outstanding all season long. And tomorrow, let's see, who are they facing there tomorrow? I lost my place. Julio Tehran. So definitely not an easy matchup for them. And the Marlins are going to be throwing out Tom Kohler from Stony Brook. I know the Marlins have been exceptional at home and have been pretty good offensively as a whole this season. You can't really roster them against Tehran, can you?
No. I don't think you can take anyone on the Marlins. Their pitchers, just the strikeouts just aren't there for him. At least if you look at his career, he's a 6.0 K9 guy. Even though the Braves strike out a lot, I wouldn't take him as a pitcher. Tehran, you can maybe take him, but then again, there's so many options at pitching tomorrow night, and he's probably going to be expensive that I'm probably not going to take him just because there's really, if I'm going to want a expensive guy, I'll probably go with Wainwright or maybe Beckett or, who am I looking at? Strasburg. If I'm going to go value, I'll go more like Kluber.
Right.
So
right.
It's just it's another meh game.
Yeah, same thing. And I feel bad kind of just saying about these, but I love Tehran as a pitcher, but the strikeouts really, aren't there for me to kind of jump him ahead of guys like Strasburg and against Wainwright and stuff like that. So I think he fits fine as a guy, maybe as a two-pitcher type play on a DraftKings site. I don't know what his price is going to be. If he's in that kind of 9.5 range, and you can still pair him with a guy like Wainwright or a guy like Strasburg and still, get a decent lineup together, then I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally on board with using him. But as kind of your number one guy tomorrow, no thanks. I think it'd be silly to kind of play him over guys like Wainwright and Strasburg. And we did mention kind of this being a meh game. I think if you're going to use hitters, it'd be maybe Braves against Kohler. Are there any there that might, Hayward homer tonight? Is that somebody that you think about, or Freddie Freeman, anything like that?
Well, for some reason, Jason Hayward seems to be perennially cheap on Draft Street. I'm not sure that's going to stay the same tomorrow, but maybe him there would work. And for some reason, Chris Johnson's always super cheap there because he just strikes out so much and they penalize for that. But I wouldn't stack the Braves. Let's put it that way. And I'm not going to take Justin Upton. He's going to be too expensive. And Freddie Freeman's generally pretty expensive. he's a good hitter, but you know, I just see a lot of ground balls in this game on for the
Yeah,
Braves.
yeah. The Braves are tough, man, because I do like their lineup basically as a whole. I like a lot of this guy. I like Jason Hayward as a player, and I like him especially this year now that he's running kind of at the top of that order. And I like Justin Upton, especially against left-handed guys. Kohler isn't left-handed, obviously. And Freddie Freeman, I'm a big proponent of, but it's just been tough. They haven't been real great, and this is at it's at a bigger park there, and I know the Marlins have been great there, but it's just, it's not. I don't think it's one of the better hitting environments, and I don't think it's conducive for as many runs as maybe we'd like to see when we try to target a bunch of hitters from a game tomorrow. I'm not sure what the Vegas run total is on this, but I wouldn't
It's
expect
at
it to be
7.
7. Yeah, okay. So they're expecting kind of one of the lower end run totals there tomorrow. So yeah, not much here for me. The next game though. The White Sox and Padres. This is at a good hitters park at U.S. Cellular, which typically plays to a bandbox. And John Danks is going for the White Sox. This is a guy who was actually really really good in his last start. 8 innings, only gave up 3 hits, but typically a guy that we really try to pick on. And I know it's the Padres, but I'm sure there's going to be some guys that maybe you're going to like from that. On the other end of it, it's Ian Kennedy, who's been pretty good here and has actually had some really good strikeout games this season. What are your thoughts initially maybe on this game?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to take too many White Sox. Maybe Adam Dunn. He's just often kind of a cheap guy, and he's definitely good for some home runs. So as far as the Padres, in general, the Padres still do suck. So I don't want to get too hot to use them, but they're sometimes pretty cheap. Jerko comes to mind as a good second baseman option. He's right-handed. Um, I have to look at the guys more to see their who works well against left-handed pitching, and there's a good chance that some random Padres guy that just isn't used that much, but only used against left-handed pitching is in the lineup. So a guy like him is a good if something like that happens. This Tommy, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, Medica
Medica.
guy.
Yeah.
He's just been on fire lately, and he's generally pretty cheap. So he's probably my number one option I would use in that game.
Right. Man, you mentioned Yorko or however you want to pronounce it. He's from not too far from here, West Virginia area. I used him the other night against Wade Miley, and he just kind of really disappointed. The rest of that lineup really wasn't too bad, but I really like a guy like Carlos Quentin, and you mentioned Tommy Medica. Headley can swing around from the right side. Evers Cabrera can too. Although I think, honestly, I know this is the Padres lineup that's pretty disgusting, but John Danks isn't a good pitcher. And this is at a very nice hitters park, not Petco tomorrow. So while it might seem really odd or difficult as you kind of fill out a lineup with a bunch of Padres guys, I wouldn't be against using a Padres stack in a lineup at maybe DraftKings or something. In fact, I'll probably have some exposure to them definitely because I think you'd feel real bad maybe taking a night there, playing some lineups, and not trying to pick on John Danks. So that's kind of my take on that. Uh,
I could also see it being kind of a better stack for GPPs too, just because I don't think it's going to be that popular of a stack. I really don't know. Maybe it will be, but I think people are probably going to stack more the Orioles, or maybe even the Blue Jays. Probably not the Blue Jays, but maybe the Royals or the Yankees or maybe the Twins. I think people are going to probably ignore the Padres because the Padres suck. But hey, any one night and they're in a good hitters park and they got some good right-handed bats, I could see it. You can probably fill a nice little stack there and also use some great pitchers. So
Yeah, that's one of the favorite reasons I like to do it. And even the other night, where Wade Miley actually, they hit him around a little bit, but he kind of dominated. He had like 11 strikeouts. Even on a night like that, where I kind of expected to see more of those guys in lineups, they were still such a low percentage owned. Outside of a guy like Carlos Quentin, who was kind of around like that 12 to 15% because he got the lefty in the nice park there. So I don't expect them to be, like you said, really highly owned. But I think it's something that I'm going to definitely have exposure to should John Danks kind of be John Danks, and let those Padres guys hit him around tomorrow. Outside of that game, though, we go to a game that I will definitely be tuned into: the Cubs and Brewers. Um, it's at Miller Park. Marco Estrada gets the Cubs. He has not been good recently, and Travis Wood gets the Brewers. I know everybody's always on Brewers against lefties. Do you feel the same there tomorrow against Travis Wood?
No, I don't. Travis was a pretty good pitcher. The over-under is just 7.5. I think people are going to make a mistake by taking too many Brewers in this game. It's daily fantasy baseball, so mistakes aren't. If you make a mistake at daily fantasy baseball, you can still easily win. It's not like basketball where if you make a mistake, chances are it's going to tank your lineup. But I don't like the Brewer. I don't like any of the hitters in this game. I do like Marco Estrada. His K9 rate is 8.7 in his career, and he's facing the Cubs. So if he's cheap, I would grab him. I mean, I think he's going to be. I'm probably going to. I don't know. I like him in general tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. It's as a Cubs homer, I really struggle to pick guys against them just because I hate to root for them. But I can't really fault you for maybe wanting to pick on them. And sorry, this is off topic, but something I just noticed here that popped up on my screen. Edwin Encarnacion just hit his second home run tonight.
Wow.
It is absolutely uncanny. Man, I didn't play a whole lot tonight because I was kind of preparing for this, and I wanted to make sure that we got you guys kind of squared away with this. And I've got some packing and stuff to do. I'm headed home tomorrow. I didn't play much, but in the lineups I played, I did not roster Edwin Encarnacion anywhere.
I didn't either. He's facing James Shields. You think,
Right. I didn't think it was totally a terrible matchup for Edwin, especially as hot as he's been. But it wasn't the Chris Davis matchup tonight or the Paul Goldschmidt for me. Like those two guys stood head and shoulders for me above the rest at first base. But Edwin Encarnacion, man, it's unreal. You might as well just pencil in. Tomorrow, if you're trying to pick your 20 different teams for the Sports Trade X Millionaire Maker, and Edwin Encarnacion is on a team, and you don't pick his side, you might as well just kiss away the million because he's probably going to hit another 3 home runs tomorrow night. So
I just have a feeling he's either going to go for 2 or 3 home runs or he's going to go for 5.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right in our face, right?
Yeah.
One of those things.
You know what? And I'm not sure how much input you have on who's on those teams. I hope Edwin Encarnacion finds his way into one of those 20 matchups tomorrow.
He definitely will be. Yeah, I'm definitely. I guess I'm the head of the matchup making at Sports Trade X. So
cool.
I don't know. I'll definitely get him in there. Maybe we could have some sort of fun matchup. I don't know. Put him against some other first baseman that we kind of are trashing or something like that. We'll just see.
Right.
Find a good matchup for him.
I would be interested to see of those teams, of the 100 guys that are in that, how many guys would pick against Edwin Encarnacion tomorrow. I can't advise doing so, picking against him, because he's been absolutely unreal. I'm not going to say that that'll live up to that tomorrow, but we shall see. He's been incredible. But anyway, I guess we don't really need to talk about too much about the Cubs-Brewers game. The Orioles-Astros game tomorrow. I know it was maybe a popular game again tonight to try a stack against Brad Peacock, who's been good. He's only given up 2 hits through 3 1/3. Tomorrow it's Miguel Gonzalez for the Orioles, and it's Brett Oberholzer, the lefty, throwing against the Orioles. Any guys, Nelson Cruz, definitely, Adam Jones, Machado, those guys on your radar tomorrow?
I think the Orioles will be a popular stack. Something to keep in mind is that the Vegas line is pretty much having these guys as even, so it's not like the Orioles really are that much better of a play than the Astros in terms of just total runs scored. Another thing about the Orioles hitters is that the right-handed hitters actually have better numbers against right-handed pitchers for whatever reason, like Nelson Cruz and Adam Jones. You don't really get a whole lot facing a lefty with those guys. I don't know Machado's numbers. Maybe he would be a significant boost because he's facing lefty, but you don't really get too much. It's not like them facing lefty is really much better than facing a righty. I might ignore this game at a GPP level just because I think people are going to stack the Orioles so much. that is just kind of a hope that Obi holds his own. But I can't blame someone for taking some Orioles or taking George Springer, who's just been insane lately on the Astros.
Yeah, yeah, that's a difficult thing, and I guess that's a topic for maybe a different day. Knowing kind of when to maybe take a chance and go against the masses, because it is going to be a very very popular stack, and it's scary to put together lineups and maybe not have any exposure to them. But we know when is the right time to do that, and like I said, I think that's a maybe a good discussion for another day. Not right now, but something to maybe consider tomorrow, when a lot of people are going to be kind of on those guys. In the next game, though, I'm not sure how stackable this one will end up being. It's the Giants and Cardinals. There are some weather concerns again there tomorrow, but I actually really like Madison Bumgarner as a pitcher in general. And Adam Wainwright, obviously, probably at the top of most people's lists tomorrow against the Giants, who actually are one of the best teams in the major leagues right now. This game, outside of the pitching, has to be like a no play for you, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely not taking any hitters in this game. And if you're right about the weather concerns, and it turns out that there's some major potential for rain, then I think you're going to have to avoid the pitchers just because in case there's a rain delay and they yank them. I think you're looking at some high prices for the pitchers on site. So while I definitely do like both these pitchers, it might be one of those things where I end up not taking them just because of that. But we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's man, you never know when kind of you need to pay up for guys and when not to. And I think obviously Wainwright's going to be priced higher than Bumgarner, but both are really solid options in my opinion. I'm not sure really what to expect from the game as a whole. At first glance, I think most people would expect it to be kind of a pitcher's duel type game. But this is one of those games that it might be kind of a sneaky thing to stack against one of these guys, and if it hits, you're just about the only guy who has it. You're probably going to take down something. I know that's another strategy we've talked about on here before, stacking against the ace on the bump, and if you would have done it in these past couple of weeks, like that time against Kershaw. Should you have stacked the Diamondbacks that night? You would have won everything handily.
Just because it works once a year doesn't mean it's a good strategy.
Right.
Field size supposed to be so huge that most of the time it's just not a good idea to do it. So.
Right. Yeah. No, you know what? The interesting thing is though, if you tried it if you throw it in the moonshot, what do you have to lose if you throw it in the moon? I mean, obviously, if you only have a $5 bankroll, maybe don't throw it in the moonshot. But if
you have
you've
a
got
$5 bankroll, I think you have bigger problems than whether or not you stack a team in the moonshot.
Right. But I mean, if you've got some cash, maybe throw it around. It's not good. I stack the Cubs every once in a while in the moonshot, and it's not always a great thing because they always never seem to do anything. But should the one day it work, I will hopefully be at the top of those leaderboards with the.
There was that day they scored the 18 runs. I don't know if you did it that day.
No, I didn't play at all that night. I didn't have any lineups anywhere that night. I can't remember why, but that was a really cool night to be a Cubs fan. Really shellacked the Cardinals that night. Anyway, we'll move on again here. Kind of speeding through some of these games so we can get through them all and then wrap up with some more Sports Trade X talk. It's the Reds and Diamondbacks still at Chase Field there tomorrow. I know this is a game that was maybe targeted kind of heavily again tonight. It's going to be Mike Leake for the Reds, and it's going to be Bronson Arroyo, an ex-Red, facing his former team. You're not on either of the pitchers, are you?
No, none of these guys throw enough strikeouts, and the over-under is 8.5, which isn't like sky high. It's not enough to where you're like, it's a must stack the hitters, must take the hitters, but there's really no reason to take any of the pitchers.
I agree. There's in my opinion no reason at all to take either of the pitchers there tomorrow, and I won't be doing so. In the same token though, it's tough for me to kind of pick and choose my way around the hitters because there's just not a whole lot of guys on really either one of these teams that is too great of a hitter in general. I had a really good feeling about Jay Bruce tonight, and I guess we'll see because that game hasn't started. It doesn't start for another 20 minutes. I guess we'll see. He hasn't been good since he's come back, but that's a guy, with major DPP upside. Devin Mesoraco has been great. Outside of that, no thanks on really too many Reds. Billy Hamilton's a mess. Um, and then on the other side of it, Goldschmidt's always in play. Montero and Parra have the platoon advantage there tomorrow. Those would be the other two guys. Any names outside of the ones I mentioned there that really would have your eye?
No, not really. It might be a game where people overstack it, like because the Diamondbacks went off last night, and let's see what happens tonight. But if it turns out that one of these teams is the highest scoring team tonight, I think people might overreact and focus a little too much on this game and ignore some of those other games that are just as good. I think Jay Bruce is one red though that you might want to look at as a cash game play.
Yeah, yeah. I like Bruce as a player, and it stinks that it's difficult to be in that lineup right now without Joey Votto, because there's not much protection at all, really, in any sense of anything there tomorrow. But huge GPP upside, and you mentioned you're a big GPP player, so I would imagine that'd be a guy that would kind of fit the bill to be on your radar tomorrow. Am I right there?
Yeah, maybe it just depends.
Right.
On how my lineups look. I probably won't be stacking the Reds.
Right,
but
right.
if I need
Yeah.
like one player to plug in an outfield, then maybe Jay Bruce.
Right, right. Okay. We'll move on again. Maybe you can find a stack in this next game. It's the Angels and A's. The A's have been a team that pretty heavily stacked, just about all the time. And tomorrow it's a little bit different. It's against Garrett Richards, who's been pretty good this season. A high K guy with an ERA around 3, and it's Drew Pomeranz for the A's, who has also been good this season. What are your thoughts? Hitters, pitchers. What are you thinking here?
For some reason, whenever I don't stack the A's, they score 11 runs. I don't think I'm not planning on stacking them tomorrow or really taking them. I also think Garrett Richards' K to 9 rate is going to come down to earth, but that doesn't mean you should take the A's. I could just see this game being kind of bleh. Maybe Pomeranz actually as a pitcher, but more as a value play, and we've kind of already established that there's AJ Burnett or maybe Montero or Marco Estrada. So there's all these other guys out there that are other good pitchers you can maybe take. I don't really like taking a pitcher against the Angels because the Angels are pretty good, but Vegas has a runner at 7. I don't know. It's just kind of another meh game.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I totally agree. And they are at a bigger ballpark, and I know that the A's are a team that the ballpark doesn't really matter. But it's a tough game for me. It's another one of those that it doesn't really fit the bill for one of the games that I really want to target too heavily. It's more one of those games, one of those mega games where I think it has more of like plug and play type options. So you get guys like Brandon Moss against the righty, and Trout and Kendrick and Pujols and Cron against the lefty, and you can kind of plug and play the different matchups, the platoon advantages there tomorrow. But outside of that, this isn't going to be a game that I'm going to be heavily targeting, really in general. Maybe the next game, I don't see it being one, but we'll get your thoughts on it. It's the Tigers and Mariners at Safeco Field. Justin Verlander and Hisashi Iwakuma. Iwakuma's been real good. Verlander not as good. Just not the same pitcher he once was. What are your thoughts here? You think the M's may be a sneaky stack?
no, I still respect Verlander. I think this is another game where I'm probably just going to ignore it because both pitchers are very good, but they're both going to be really expensive. And Iwakuma is still facing the Tigers. The Tigers will probably put up some runs, and Iwakuma doesn't strike out that much. And Verlander, like you said, he's just not what he used to be. So if I'm going to pay for an expensive pitcher, it's probably not going to be him, unless for some reason he's really cheap because of whatever reason. But this game screams ignore, quite frankly, to me.
Yeah, same here. Man, I can't get on board with jumping, or I can't get on board with using Verlander, just because we mentioned all those other options, and it's so difficult to roster him when all those other guys are there, and he just hasn't been the same pitcher. And Iwakuma is a guy that's incredibly efficient. He's a very effective pitcher. Whereas the strikeouts aren't there and it's not a good matchup for him against the Tigers team, I respect him enough, like you said, not to target heavily against him or really target against him, I guess, at all. So I won't be doing that tomorrow. It's another one of those.
Am I out?
What?
It got all staticky on me for a minute there.
Oh, no, sorry, you're still here. Yeah, I
Okay.
was just mentioning Victor Martinez, Miguel Cabrera. They're kind of, they're some of the best players in baseball right now. Swinging it well. Those are guys you can consider, but there's just not a whole lot here. And on the other side of things, there are a lot of lefties from the Mariners. Robinson Cano has been awesome, a guy that you should have your eye on, but not a whole lot there. It brings us to our last game as we're kind of wrapping things up, and then we'll touch on the Sports Trade X thing one last time before we let these guys go. It's the Pirates and the Dodgers. Tomorrow it's Beckett, fresh off the no-no, against Francisco Liriano, who's just been atrocious this season. Do you have any thoughts on this? I know you mentioned Beckett earlier. Would you go back to the well with him?
I like both pitchers. I mean, Liriano's just been killing me this year because the numbers say to use him because he's a good pitcher and he throws a lot of strikeouts, but he's just been getting lit up. I think you could go with either of these guys. They both like to throw strikeouts, and Liriano has a 9.1 career strikeout to 9 ratio. I mean, he's probably going to be really cheap, so, as a GPP play, I think he's really one of the best options out there. And knowing me, I'll probably draft him and he'll get lit up for 7 runs or something like that. But that's kind of how I look at this game. I don't really like any of the hitters. I'm definitely not going to take any of the Pirates. And I think some people are going to be tempted to take some of the right-handed Dodgers batters. But Liriano's he's a good guy. I don't know. He's probably going to settle down and have some good games, unless he's injured and he's just hiding it.
Right. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough matchup for him because the Dodgers are a good team. But I like what you said there because I'm not totally on board with using a bunch of them against him. Puig's been outrageous this season. I think he's great. Always kind of in play. Some of those guys are always regardless of matchup, it's not really ever a bad play to use them. Sometimes paying up for them isn't a good option, but like we mentioned in baseball, kind of anything can happen. So if you play one of those guys, it might be his night. Regardless of matchup, they just they might end up going off. So some of those guys are kind of always in play. I'll be hesitant to see kind of what Beckett does. I know the Pirates are not a very good team offensively, but he threw a lot of pitches last start. Fresh off the no-no, coming back home. We'll kind of see. I can't fault you for having maybe some exposure to him, but I probably won't have too much of it, especially with some of the other options. But that just about does it for all the games we have tomorrow. Let's touch up on this on the Sports Trade X thing one last time. So you guys, if you weren't here at the beginning of the show and you kind of tuned in later, tomorrow, Sports Trade X. Millionaire Maker. There's going to be a super pick'em, 20 matchups. You pick the side which you believe will score the most points. If you pick all 20 correctly, you will win $1 million. Some of the other things there: $108 entry. There's going to be $10,000 paid out guaranteed. That pays out to the top 20, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So top 20 are walking away with cash regardless. But if you happen to be number one guy, and you pick all 20 correctly, you're going to win $1 million on top of the $2,000 for taking first. Here's one thing I guess I'm going to ask you while I have you here, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but who knows? What if 2 guys get the 20 right?
I mean, the chance of that happening is minuscule, but they would split the $1 million prize.
Okay.
As part of the terms with the insurance company, but unless they're buddies and they decide on the same lineups together, it's not going to happen.
Right? Yeah. No. I totally agree. And I'm not expecting it, but it would that would be quite a wrinkle in kind of the plans for things there, especially because it's not like the odds are the odds aren't in your favor to become a millionaire, but they're not so bad that you can't. So it would just be interesting to see, two guys of like completely different, not two buddies, like two guys just pick the same team and have it win. And like you mentioned, with 20 matchups, the chances of that happening are very, very low. But it would just be interesting. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to throw out about that before we get off here. Anything else you want to kind of add to let these guys know?
Well, I just want to reiterate that it's a $10,000 guarantee with a 100-person maximum, 100 entries maximum. So basically, remember that the $1 million you're not paying for it. It's basically a free bonus. So it's you're not it's not like you're throwing money at this low chance of winning something. It's your standard GPP with it. But if you just run really well that night, you win $1 million bonus prize. And one thing that's kind of nice about our games is that you don't have the stacking issues and the crazy variance issues. So like if one guy hits 2 home runs and you don't have him on your team, in a regular GPP, chances are you're not going to win. You're basically screwed. But since it's just matchups, one team versus another, if a guy hits 2 home runs, he's probably going to win that matchup. But even if you don't choose that team, you're not out of it in terms of being able to win. So it's just a nice change of pace game, and tomorrow is a great day to try it out because it's a nice big tournament with a shot at winning $1 million for free, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It gets me excited just thinking about it. A chance at $1 million. I don't know what I would do with $1 million. There are a lot of things that I know like I need to buy, or I don't need, but want to buy, and obviously paying off school and some rent would be nice. So hopefully somebody takes down $1 million tomorrow. That would be great to see. I think everybody's kind of rooting for it because, like you said, you guys are insured for it anyway. Might as well pay it out, right? So we'll see how that goes.
Come support it because if it's popular, we'll just keep running it. So we're how much you enter it's kind of like the votes from the DFS community. If we get support and people enter this thing and it looks like it's popular, we'll keep running it. So don't sit around and make sure you enter. So we can keep giving you guys this great basically essentially a free chance of winning $1 million because if you're gonna pay $100 contest anyways, you might as well have a free bonus option, right?
Exactly. I feel the same way. But that wraps it up, man. So I do want to thank you again for having you on. It was great to have you again. Another great mind in DFS. And gladly, we want to talk about the Sports Trade X thing so these guys know, if you weren't already aware, that tomorrow there's a chance that somebody's going to win $1 million, and don't let it slip away without even taking a chance there tomorrow, guys. We mentioned all the specs. There's a thread on it. You can go to Sports Trade X. You can see the news on it. It's up there. The matchups will be up around 1 o'clock, you said. So plenty of time to take advantage. Get in there. Win it, support our sponsors, take home $1 million, and then kick back some cash to me for letting you know about it afterwards. But anyway, we're going to hop off here, guys. Went through all the games for you. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter or in the forums or in the chat. And any questions, I'm sure you could contact support at Sports Trade X. They can help you guys out if you have any questions about it. Other than that, you have any last thoughts there?
Nope, thanks for having me on, and good luck to everybody tomorrow.
All right, guys. You heard them. Good luck. Hope to see you in the game. Hope to see you around, and we'll take care.